3 years or fewer. This is a little bit about what we will be going over today. We'll have welcomes and introductions. We'll go over a little bit about what national service entails and some information about our particular program. We'll discuss what's new for the upcoming service year. We'll give you some tips on recruiting the right member and required as well as prohibited activities. We'll give you some tips for getting your year with your new AmeriCorps members started on the right foot. We'll talk about roles and responsibilities and reporting requirements. We'll discuss member service hours a little bit, and we'll talk about some concerns that were raised during a recent evaluation and also some celebrations of some positive feedback that we received. And we'll have time for questions at the end. But during the session, if you have a question, just feel free to unmute your telephone or the microphone on your computer, and I'll be happy to answer them at that time. So, introductions. I'm Charlotte Kramer. I am the program director of Lewis Clark Service Corps, and I also served as an AmeriCorps Vista for 2 years, so I'm an alum. Judy Biddick leads the Boise office with Jonna Mansfield as the program assistant. She's also an alum. And Carrie Ann Sorofsky, our office assistant, who served for 2 years with our program as well. In Lewiston, Barb Siska is our program specialist. Ellen Thompson does our financial records, and Claudia Mazurka is the office assistant. So now if I could get our supervisors to introduce themselves, your name and the name of your agency or organization or school, and what your AmeriCorps member will be doing during their year. So just jump in.
This is Eric Keel, District 1, Felony Probation and Parole, Idaho Department of Corrections. We've had Carol Griffin here as our volunteer, and we hope to have her again next year. She's been very involved in helping our offenders with their GEDs, and that's what we'd like her to do next year as well.
That's great. Thank you very much. Who's next?
This is Allison Marks. I came in a little late.
Okay. And your site and what the member will be doing, Allison?
Yeah, this is Sawtooth Botanical Garden, and we showcase organic gardening methods and advocate for sustainability. And our AmeriCorps will be doing all our youth programming here at the Botanical Garden.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Tony Winston at the Middleton School District, and AmeriCorps members usually help out with the middle school during the day doing remediation with students, and also then in the afternoons go ahead and work in the after-school program. Give them a great deal of help with enrichment programs and teaching those programs, and Jennifer Sanford, Lisa Lopez, and Max Pond have done an outstanding job this year with us.
Great. Thank you. Next, you can unmute your phone or unmute the microphone on your computer.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it was on mute.
Okay.
This is Anna Tuya Ayarud, and I'm the Director of Academic Services at the University of Idaho. And our AmeriCorps person will be working in our athletic department, working with high-risk student athletes, helping them with their academic progress toward graduation and helping them with NCAA eligibility for their sport.
Thank you. Anyone else we haven't heard from yet? And there may be some people who do not have the speaker capability. So we'll go ahead and move on. So national service. Our program and all AmeriCorps programs in the country are overseen by a federal agency called the Corporation for National and Community Service. And the corporation oversees AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, and the Social Innovation Fund. They also oversee Learn and Serve, which supports service learning in K-12 and higher ed. Unfortunately, funding for that was zeroed out in the budget agreement a few weeks ago. So after this year, there will be no more Learn and Serve organization underneath the corporation. So AmeriCorps is divided into 3 different sections: AmeriCorps State and National. And we, Lewis Clark Service Corps, is an AmeriCorps state program. AmeriCorps Vista, Vista stands for Volunteers in Service to America. AmeriCorps NCCC, which is the National Civilian Community Corps. Those AmeriCorps members live on campuses throughout the United States and then are dispatched to areas they need. They were in Idaho a couple of years ago for the Special Olympic World Games, volunteering and helping out there. Many of them are now in the South helping with flooding and tornado recovery. So that's what the NCCC does. Senior Corps is comprised of foster grandparents, the Senior Companion Program, and RSVP. And then the Social Innovation Fund is something new, and it supports agencies that have developed innovative ideas to address social concerns and social issues. Our program is overseen by Serve Idaho, which is the Governor's Commission on Service and Volunteerism, and it's a 19-member commission that is appointed by the governor. In addition to Lewis Clark Service Corps, AmeriCorps state programs operating in Idaho include the Accessible Transportation Network, the Salmon Chalice National Forest Training Center, healthcare for children and families, and Veterans Helping Veterans. So we're not the only AmeriCorps program in Idaho, but we are the largest. They also have national direct programs. That means it's an organization, it's an AmeriCorps program that is operating in several states. So within Idaho, there's Clear Corps, the Student Conservation Association, Community Health Corps, and Students in Service. Specifically for Lewis Clark Service Corps, we are based at Lewis Clark State College. Our first grant was awarded in 1994, the year that AmeriCorps was established, and we were called Idaho Trio AmeriCorps at the time. We have received funding every year since then, which is very unusual for an AmeriCorps program. And in 2000, the Idaho Trio AmeriCorps merged with Treasure Valley AmeriCorps Consortium in Boise, and the Lewis Clark Service Corps was formed. This year we have 94 full-time members and 22 part-time members who serve in 26 communities, and they are at 51 different host sites from Bonners Ferry to Rexburg. So you can see we have a very big footprint. So let's talk about our performance measures for this year. Last year, the corporation started a pilot program of national performance measures. The reason they did that is because at the time, every AmeriCorps program was measuring something different. So it's hard to really tell the story using data if everybody's giving you data of something different that they're measuring. So we opted into the National Service Performance Measures trial. And so, like other AmeriCorps programs that are focused on education, we are measuring the following items. How many students begin to receive tutoring from a member? How many receive tutoring for a minimum of 50 sessions? We selected 50 because that was a pretty reasonable amount of the number of interactions a tutor and their students have during a year. And then of those, 3,500 will have improved academic performance. So we started with the 6,300 that will start. Of those, 4,725 will attend a minimum of 50 sessions, and of those, 3,500 will have academic improvement based on whatever assessment tool you use to measure. Then we also, at the recommendation of our grants officer at the corporation, we opted this year into the mentoring performance measure as well. And you'll see these numbers are much lower than the other ones. And the primary reason for that is that we could only measure the disciplinary referrals or suspensions within the Department of Correction, and so we base these numbers on our members who actually serve with probation and parole and within the corrections institutions. So we say that there will be 50 matches made, 40 will be sustained for at least 10 months, and 30 will have fewer disciplinary referrals or suspensions. The only other thing we could have measured is high school graduation rates, and when we're dealing with offenders or college students, that doesn't really apply. Now, we still want you to measure the mentoring that goes on with your AmeriCorps member. It's just not something we're going to be officially reporting to the corporation, but we use that data internally for other reasons, other causes. So the other things we're measuring but not reporting to the corporation are the IRI scores, Idaho Reading Indicator scores for K-3 students in Idaho, and at Stibbles or Dibbles in Washington. The number of K-6 students who improve math skills, and then the general academic improvement for K-12, 7 to 12 adult learners and offenders. So we measure all of these, but we don't report on them officially. So what things have been changed for the upcoming year? Well, supervisors will be required to have an FBI fingerprint check. And that cost is the responsibility of the host site. Many host sites already require that, especially within K-12 schools and the Department of Correction. If that's the case and your supervisors have already passed the check, you have to provide us with documentation that says that fingerprint check has been passed. You also need to indicate that you have actually seen the picture ID and that, yes, the fingerprint check is for that person. Living allowance will increase to $12,100 for full-time and $5,600 for part-time. And the education award goes up as well to $5,550 for full-time and $2,775 for part-time. Members who are age 55 and older may also pass along their education award now to a child, a grandchild, or a foster child. And members can serve up to 4 terms, regardless if it's full-time or part-time. However, they can only receive the equivalent of 2 full-time education awards. So if a member has already served 2 full-time terms, they can serve 2 more full-time terms, but they won't get an education award for it. A member who serves 4 part-time terms will get 4 part-time education awards. So this is how our program year runs. I submit the grant in late December or early January. We start accepting host site applications in February and March. June, July, and August are our busiest months because we're recruiting and enrolling members at the same time that we're exiting members who have completed their service. So we have a lot of paperwork flying around those 3 months. Our new program year starts on September 1st, and because of the provisions of the grant, we can't spend any money on any AmeriCorps member for the coming year prior to that date. We always get requests to please train the members before they start serving on September 1st, but we just can't do it because we're not allowed to spend any money. We do have orientation and training October 3rd through the 7th, and that's here in Lewiston, so your members won't be at your site during those days. And then they have service projects in October, November. We're still trying to decide if we want to stick with Make a Difference Day or possibly do something more around Veterans Day. And then January is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and May is National AmeriCorps Week, which is this week, so yay AmeriCorps. And then, of course, recruiting your member begins now. If your member is coming back, you know, you're lucky because you won't have to go through this. But for those of you who haven't found your member, here's some tips and some things that have worked for us. You're a very important partner of ours in recruiting the right member. We know what we're looking for as far as an AmeriCorps commitment, but you know what you need on a day-to-day basis in a tutor or a mentor. So we really need your help in making sure the right person is placed in your position. So we make sure we have summer contact information so we can contact you as we get applications. We already have people streaming in our door asking for applications and wanting to know more information. So if we have your summer contact information, we can get those individuals to you for interviews, and you have a wider selection of good candidates that way. Please take advantage of your local newspapers, and that includes the free, like the Money Saver or the Thrifty Nickel or whatever it's called. You get to a broader audience that way. Don't forget online. We post ours on Idealist and Craigslist. Craigslist has been an excellent recruiting avenue for us. Use your website if you've got a reader board, if you know AmeriCorps alums, if you know current AmeriCorps members, ask if they have a friend or family member that might be interested. Don't forget the PTA or volunteers that already work with your program. We will provide you a benefits flyer and the frequently asked questions. All of this information, by the way, is coming out in the host site hotline newsletter in the next week, so don't worry about copying this down. We will have links to all of that in the online newsletter. We have developed 2 recruitment websites, one for Southern Idaho openings, one for Northern Idaho openings, and so we'll have links for those. So if you get calls, you can just send them this link, and it's got everything they need to know about our program, how to apply, what positions are available, that kind of thing. And then you can also order brochures from AmeriCorps. And here's just some sample ads that we have used with some success. The one on the top left really appeals to individuals who are looking for a service type of position, somebody who is motivated by volunteering and being effective in their community. The one on the right is more geared towards somebody who's really looking to do something in education. And then the Craigslist ad is basically just tells, since we don't have limits on space or words, we give a more lengthy explanation of what it is, what the benefits are, etc. And we can also provide you with copies of these if you need. And if you're ready to do an ad and you want us to look it over just to make sure that the information's correct, please feel free to email it to your home office. We're more than happy to do that. So how does the recruitment process work? So individuals who are interested in serving apply online at my.americorps.gov. All applications have to go through that. That's the only way that you can apply anymore. It's all an online process now. When we get the application, and we've listed all of our available positions out there already, so people who are interested in serving with our program have any number of ways that they can search for openings. When we get the application, We look it over and we make the initial contact and schedule an interview with Lewis Clark Service Corps. You may also have somebody in mind, and you are perfectly free to interview them first. We don't have to interview them first. It doesn't matter as long as we both interview and sign off. We need to make sure that the members understand the AmeriCorps commitment that they're making. They need to understand the additional requirements that we have besides what they'll be doing at your site. So we both need to do that interview. But you make the final decision. We may send you 5 or 6 different applicants. Applicants contact us. Some of them know exactly where they want to apply to. Some have no idea. We make recommendations to what we think might be a good fit, but at the same time, you are the best judge of who's going to be the right member for your position. So you make that final decision. Once you have offered that position to the applicant and they have accepted it, you send your home office an email saying that the position was offered and accepted, and then we'll start the enrollment process. So who can be an AmeriCorps member? They have to be at least 17 years of age. If they're going to be tutoring, it requires a high school diploma or a GED. If they are strictly serving in a before and after school capacity, that is considered mentoring, not necessarily tutoring, and so they are not required to have a high school diploma or GED, but they must be working towards it. So mentors, that's not required. Tutors, it is. They have to be a United States citizen or a legal permanent resident, and they have to pass a multi-state criminal background check and national sex offender registry check. And this year, our members must also have an FBI fingerprint check if they're working with vulnerable populations, and the corporation defines that as children, individuals with disability, or the elderly. So if your AmeriCorps member is going to be working with one of those populations, then they have to pass a fingerprint background check. Our organization will pay for the member's fingerprint check. We also pay for the criminal background check. The sex offender registry check is free. The fingerprint check, as you might imagine, takes substantially longer than our criminal background check. That gets us results instantaneously. The fingerprint check is going to take much longer. So a member can actually start serving prior to passing the fingerprint check. If they pass the criminal background check and the sex offender registry check, they can start serving until we receive the fingerprint check. If for some reason the fingerprint check or even the criminal background check, for that matter, comes back with notification that, yes, they have been convicted of a crime, regardless of what it is. The only thing that will completely prohibit a member from serving is if it's a sex offense or murder. If it's anything less than that, then we review, and it's up to us working with the host sites to determine if it's something that was minor enough that it's not really going to affect their service. So we have a little bit of wiggle room there. And of course, individuals with disabilities are encouraged to apply. So what must AmeriCorps members do? Well, they provide direct service to your clients or students. They have to do that. That's what AmeriCorps is direct service. They must tutor and or mentor academically at-risk students one-on-one and in small groups, and that's very important phrasing there. We use that in our grant, and so we need to make sure that these activities are going on one-on-one or in small groups. In mentoring, there's a pretty broad definition of mentoring for our purposes. So that can include educational enrichment activities, civic engagement, recruiting and managing volunteers, as long as they're very hands-on and directly working with the volunteers. Now, I need to take a sip of water because I have to go through the prohibited activities, which are extensive. Our AmeriCorps members are covered by the Hatch Act, and so they may not provide strictly, well, this isn't the Hatch Act, but our members may not provide strictly clerical or administrative services. As I said, they're direct service, so they must be working directly with the clients. They may not engage in an effort to influence legislation or lobby. They cannot engage in partisan political activities or take part in political demonstrations or rallies. They can't organize protests or boycotts, help with union organizing, or impair existing contracts. They can't participate or endorse events or activities that include political advocacy. They may not engage in religious instruction or conduct worship services. They can't provide benefit to a for-profit entity. The next two are some that we actually come across quite frequently: the displacing or supplanting any existing or planned for worker. If you have a substitute or a part-time employee, that person cannot be your AmeriCorps member. And if you were planning to hire somebody, you can't say, oh, we're going to do the AmeriCorps member now. And along the same lines, they can't have been on your payroll within the last 6 months. The AmeriCorps member may not have been on your payroll in the last 6 months. They may not participate in fundraising at your host site, for your host site. They want to make sure that we don't get into a situation where an AmeriCorps member is raising money for their own cash match. They will fundraise for their service projects, but they cannot fundraise for your host site. Now, a disclaimer: they're, of course, citizens of this country or legal permanent residents, so they do have rights. They just if they want to participate in any of those activities, they may do so on their own time, at their own initiative, and at their own expense. And they may not wear their AmeriCorps gear, they may not identify themselves as AmeriCorps, and they cannot count any of those hours towards their service. So as a host site, we really like to help promote each other, and so we will give you a sign and that you have an AmeriCorps member serving there that we want you to place in a visible location. We encourage you to allow members to identify themselves either by wearing their T-shirt or their name tag or their AmeriCorps pin. You agree to allow us to mention your agency when we're promoting our program, and encourage, we like you to encourage publicity on the work that your member might be doing. And then if you do have any type of publicity that you mention us if it's the work of our AmeriCorps member, and we can provide you with logos and those kind of things to use. So you've got your AmeriCorps member. How do you make sure you start off on the right foot? The best way to do that is to sit down and really review what the expectations of the member are for your host site. That includes the daily schedule, what they're going to be doing from the time they get there till when they leave, where they're expected to be and when. Lay it out as detailed as possible. Talk about the number of hours you expect them to serve each week, about, what is the schedule at the school? Are there going to be other obligations you want them to serve partially in summer school, those kind of things. Who to call when they're going to be late or absent. How do they request time off? What holidays is your organization closed? What is the dress code? We tell our members that as the site supervisor, you have the authority to set all of these guidelines, including a dress code, and so they're to act professional and follow your policies on that. Go over who they contact if they have a question or a concern at the site. What's the chain of command they deal with? What are your rules regarding relationships? Is it okay if they drive a student someplace in their own vehicle? What if they overhear them talking about something illegal? So make sure that you're ready and prepared to give this kind of guidance to members. Because actually we give the members this list of questions and ask them to go over them with you their first day there. So it's really good if you're prepared with the answers. Makes you look really smart. Talk about how you will reimburse the AmeriCorps member if they have out-of-pocket expenses for anything, and then go over the position description that you submitted with the applications so you can review if there are any new goals or maybe a new focus, or is there somebody else that's involved? Has the actual site supervisor who will be with the member most of the time, are they aware of what the job description says? So that way the member's fulfilling the role that we think that they're going to be. Talk about goals for the first quarter and how you will document that, how you're going to measure student success, how you're going to assess that. Does the member need to be trained in how to grade the test or administer the test? And talk about evaluations, how you're going to solicit feedback for the member. So let's just kind of go through the first couple of weeks, what it's going to look like with a member. Like I said, determine a clear chain of command. Who does the member call? Make sure that the person that you tell the member to call knows that they're going to be the one the member's calling. Make sure anybody who's going to be working with the AmeriCorps member has the job description so they're well aware of what the role is in the organization. Make sure you have your AmeriCorps sign up and get a work area ready so, she can put her purse there or he's got a place to do his paperwork or something like that. The first day, introduce the member to the staff within your organization and be ready to explain what the role is. And you'll see a little bit later why this buy-in from staff is so important. Make sure they understand your policies and procedures. Show him or her where they're going to be working, and ask if they have any questions. And like I said, we have provided the member with a list of questions, so you'll be prepared to answer those. During the first 2 weeks, announce the member to the community, and we're actually going to be providing a press release for host sites after we get official confirmation that we received the grant. We'll have a press release that we will send to you that you can share with your local press. And make sure, like, the PTA knows, your board of directors, put it in your newsletter, that kind of thing. During the first couple of weeks, try to meet a few minutes each day to kind of learn if there's any issues or any questions, how are things going. Talk about the goals that you have for the member to accomplish, what our performance goals are, and how you're going to work together to help us all meet these goals. And then we ask our members when we interview them about where they see themselves and how they'd like to grow during their year in AmeriCorps. So you might help with that reflection too and discussing personal goals to make sure that this is a rewarding experience for the AmeriCorps member as well. And then the rest of the year, be their cheerleader, be their mentor, be their coach. AmeriCorps service can be very hard and very stressful, and the more support they have at the host site, the better chance that it's going to be a successful placement. Try to meet with your member at least once a week. In the application, you say that you do agree to do that. And talk about the evaluations. We have evaluations that we ask our members to collect, and then any evaluations you're going to do besides our mid-year and end-of-year evaluations. And then track the in-kind match that you provide on the monthly data sheet. So what we do for our host sites is we'll provide you an electronic version of our host site supervisor handbook. It'll have all this information and more, and we're in the process of revising that, and we'll have that available at the beginning of the next service year. And we also provide training to members in general adult literacy and math tutoring techniques. Depending on the age group, we divide it up K-12 or adult. We provide training on mentoring methods, service learning and civic engagement, and our AmeriCorps requirements. In an evaluation that we recently had, some sites, when they were interviewed, said that they wish that we would train them more specifically on how to tutor offenders, or how to deal with college students, or as you heard when we did introductions, we have such a wide variety of host sites, it's really impossible to provide that specific of training. So we'll give them the general standards-based training, but anything more specific is going to be the responsibility of your site. And then we'll conduct visits to sites during the program year. We don't get to every place, but we do try to get a good broad section of site visits so we can provide you with feedback as well. As a supervisor, you agree to meet once a week with your member and ensure that they're providing direct service at least 80% of their time. You agree to sign the service logs biweekly and the monthly data reports every month. You agree to complete performance evaluations and quarterly progress reports, and then to attend the regional workshops we'll be having in November, December. And some of those will be on webinars for some of the outlying areas, so we can all use our time a little more efficiently. And then required trainings during the year will be how to become an AmeriCorps host site. Actually, that's just where we review the application and explain what's new and what we're looking for, so that way it gives you the best chance at being selected to host a member. And then a newer returning supervisor training like we're having now, that'll be next May. And then, like I said, in November, December, we'll have our regional workshops. Members receive a pre-service training after they accept the position and before they begin service. We were calling this an enrollment meeting, but it's really has been expanded to include more than just turning in paperwork. So we're actually in the process of making that even a little bit meatier, and so we will provide that training, so it'll be just a little bit longer and a little bit more meaningful. So they'll have that little bit of training before they go to your host site. And then orientation will be here in Lewiston the 3rd through the 7th. That's one additional day because we have too many members to train in 2.5 days. We just can't do it. The Serve Idaho conference will be in early spring, and then your members will be at a 2 to 3 hour meeting every month on the 2nd or 3rd Friday. They meet with other AmeriCorps members, other Lewis Clark Service Corps members in the area. They plan service projects, review curriculum, and talk about discussion questions we give them. So the monthly data report gives us information about students that were tutored or mentored, the in-kind you've provided, what kind of training our members received in volunteer and service projects. So we're just going to look at this very quickly. The member will fill this out every month, and it's your obligation to review it and sign it. Up in the top left corner, it tells you where it needs to go to. It's the member's responsibility to send that to us. Under needs and service activities, we have the list of items that we track for our performance measures. In the box to the left of that list is we just want them to check so we know which items they worked on during the month. The boxes on the right are the number of new students they served that month. So the first month they turn one of these in, there may be 20 or 30 in those boxes. By the second month, it may be 0 because there were no new students. If the 4th month into the program, 2 new students joined the tutoring, then they would put 2. The middle part, you'll see that the top blue box on the right are the names and hours of your staff who are available to supervise members during the month and how many hours they are available. It's not unusual for that to add up to way more hours than the AmeriCorps member has served because we get to count when the staff or the supervisor is available to supervise. And then the bottom is any resources that you've provided, training, travel, registration, copies, those kind of things, and what the value of those is. And an estimate is fine. At the top of the next page, training they've received after pre-service orientation, they'll have marked most of those off. And then after that, anything that they receive that's provided from your host site, that will be marked. The middle part are the number of volunteers they've recruited to serve at your agency. And then the next part tells us about volunteers that they have recruited for their community service projects. And then down at the bottom, you and the member sign and date. And you must always sign and date after the member signs and dates. So member service hours, we have to verify that they're actually serving the number of hours, so that way they can get their education award. And we track those in my service log, and we'll, as it gets closer to this time we start the next year, we'll go into this more in depth. But the username is your email address. The password is generated by the system, and we will send those to you. The members go into my service log every week and enter their hours. And then as supervisors, you go in every other week and verify those hours. And once again, it's got to be after the member has signed. We just had an audit last week, and they went through all the signatures on all the timesheets in my service log to see what the dates were for the signatures between the member and the supervisor. So that's very important. This coming year, we're actually going to have, we're going to send out reminder emails every other week. I understand it can be kind of hard to remember sometimes when it's not a paper timesheet sitting in front of your desk. So we'll send out reminder emails every other week to go in and verify and sign time logs. So this is what it'll look like when you log in. And then down at the lower left, you'll see that it says the hours logs. That's what you click on to approve them. Up at the top, you see that you'll choose the month that you're approving the hours for. Then you'll select the name of your member, the direct service hours or service agreement hours, say what they're doing, AmeriCorps member tutor, how many hours, and then for training, it just says miscellaneous training. And then members can add a comment there about what the training is. When a member approves it, they type in their name and it automatically timestamps it. You then type your name and hit save, and it gives us the timestamp too. And those electronic signatures are valid for the corporation. And just a little explanation, the direct service hours are anything they do where the end result will be serving your students. So that can be actually tutoring and mentoring, having a staff meeting at your site, preparing the curriculum, those kind of things. Training hours are where they're actually in training at your host site or with our program, or when they're filling out AmeriCorps paperwork. Sometimes as it gets closer to the end of the year, AmeriCorps members may find it necessary to serve additional hours away from your host site in order to accumulate enough hours for an education award. That's acceptable with the exception of volunteer work, which may be reasonably expected that the member would participate in. And the example that we've been dinged for before was a member who was counting hours for coaching his child's sports team. And according to the corporation, as a parent, he could have reasonably been expected to already be coaching the sports team, so you should not be able to count those as AmeriCorps hours. But if we approve and you approve, it's all right for a member to serve at an alternative site. They will have to complete a paper service log, logging the hours at that alternative site. And we must also have a designated supervisor who can verify that the member is at that site serving. The member will enter those hours in my service log as service agreement hours, just like the hours they spend at your site. It's perfectly acceptable for you to ask to view that service log before you approve those hours. And then the member has to send that hard copy to us, the original hard copy to us. Their service at an alternative site should never interfere with their commitment to you and your program. We tell them that is their number one priority. If it ever becomes a problem, please let us know right away so we can do some problem solving. Full-time members serve about 40 hours a week, minimum of 1,720 hours. Part-time members do complete 920 hours, which is 20 to 25 hours a week, depending on the length of their term. Part-time members can serve 10 to 12 months. Full-time members can serve 11 to 12 months. And as a host site, you have ensured that there is sufficient activity at your site so the member will be able to complete their hours. So you'll need to plan for school breaks, spring break, things like that to make sure they have an opportunity to get those hours. If a member does not serve for a week, we can't give them a living allowance. So we tell them they have to do a few hours a week. That's the only way that we can provide them with a living allowance. So during breaks, you might be thinking of things that you can give them that they can work on at home, maybe some extra reading. During spring break and winter break, they are usually planning their Martin Luther King Jr. or their service projects, so they are able to put together some hours. But just be thinking about that. That's also an important point about recruiting your member. If you are late recruiting and they can't begin their service until mid-September, they've lost 2 weeks of a living allowance. They still have to serve the same number of hours, but they don't get the same amount of money. So that's why it's really important we have members on board by September 1st. So we're almost done here, and I just wanted to kind of go over a few concerns that were raised when an outside evaluator talked to some of our members during the evaluation. And these are the kind of things that raised red flags, not just with our office, but if these comments were made to an auditor, it could result in audit findings that would require us to pay back substantial amount of money. So I just want you to hear from the mouths of AmeriCorps members some of the things that they deal with, so that way you can be aware of what to avoid. The first one is I feel like my site doesn't understand what it means to use an AmeriCorps member effectively. My role seems to be helping other staff and not the students. So you can see there how it's important that everyone who's going to be dealing with the AmeriCorps member understands what their role is. My hours have gone from 20 hours a week to 6. I spend my time listening to music and doing homework. This is one where we would have to pay money back. We can't be giving a living allowance for listening to music and doing homework. If at any time during the service year you find that there's not the demand that you anticipated, or you don't have the client base you normally have for whatever reason, or there's just not enough going on that you can keep your member busy for the required number of hours, please talk to us right away. We can help problem solve that. We can get you in touch with community partners. We can find other places for your member to serve until things pick up again. But we can never have a member telling an evaluator this. I thought I would spend more time tutoring rather than working recess duty and serving lunch. That's not direct service. And someone needs to tell my supervisor I'm a tutor mentor and not a personal assistant. Of course, there were some great things that our members had to say, and that's how I would like to end our session this morning. These are the kind of comments you want to hear from your AmeriCorps members, and I'm sure you will. I really enjoy the position I'm in and the people I work with. I love working with the kids and gaining experience. The host organization I serve with is amazing. I feel like I grow every day. I enjoy my position. As needs are determined at my site, leadership steps up to help guide me. I am learning a lot. I enjoy giving back and impacting the lives of today's youth for a better tomorrow. And on that note, are there any questions? If you have a question, just unmute the mic on your computer or unmute your phone.
If we already know who we want our AmeriCorps person to be, do we have to go through the recruiting process?
Yes, they still have to put in an application at my.americorps.gov. Now, you don't have to go out and recruit other people. If you have a pretty good idea who you want your member to be, they just need to put in an application, and we need to interview them, and you just let us know that you're sending this person and it's who you want.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Sure, that doesn't apply to renewals, does it?
Yes, actually, second-year members do need to apply. It's a much shorter application process, and it's a really short interview, but it's just mostly paperwork.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? Well, I'm sure you'll have questions as we continue in this process over the next couple of months. We should be hearing about our grant by the end of May. We just went through clarifications a couple of weeks ago. We are in the second year of a 3-year cycle, and so we're pretty optimistic that we will receive funding. But as soon as we find out one way or another, you guys will be the first to know. If you have any questions in the meantime, organizations that are Riggins North can contact our office up here or anywhere in the state. If an applicant calls and asks questions that you don't know the answer to, feel free to refer them to our 800 number. We'll have all of this information in the host site hotline as well. Barb can answer any questions, and in the South office, Judy and Jonna, and then, of course, information on our website. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending today, and I look forward to a really successful partnership next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.